Hello, everyone. Welcome to the CNC with Dave Gatton show. I'm your host, Dave Gatton, and I've got with me tonight my good friends, Miter Mike from Freehold, New Jersey, I think, right, Mike?
Yes, sir. Freehold, New Jersey.
And Javi from Javi's Wood Shop.
Evening, one and all.
He will be helping to monitor the chat and everything. So this is such an exciting show. I just couldn't wait to get started. But I do want to talk about a few things before we get into this exciting subject. One, we all need to, if I can check my notes here, we all need to keep everybody that's being affected by the Hurricane Florence in our thoughts and prayers. So I know I've been watching Facebook and some people been catching it pretty good with that. So let's keep them in our thoughts and prayers and hope they make it through that okay. Also, I had something I haven't done in a long time. You guys want to guess what it was? Take a guess, Javi. What I did something today with my CNC that I haven't done in a long time.
Shut it off?
No, that's
no. Oh.
I actually had a brain fart.
Let's see. Turn it on. No, that wouldn't be it. Cut some Gatton CNCs. No, I'll do that every day.
Yeah, I actually had a brain fart and broke a bit.
Holy cow. Yeah. Well, these things happen.
I started using that kiosk enclosure thing as my main thing that I use with my Gatton CNC. And so it didn't have VCar Pro on there. And I went out there and I had to install that on there. And of course, when I did that, since there wasn't another VCarve already in there, or there was no tool database or anything, so I had to enter the information for the tools as I was running a little job today. And apparently, when you're putting in the past depth, there's a big difference between 0.7 and 0.07.
Just a tad.
Yeah. And, I totally missed it when I put it in there. Decimal point, wrong place, And boy, when that thing dove in there, it snapped it right off just about flush with the collet. But first time I've done that in a long time. But I just want to bring that up. So all the newbies out there in the chat, hey, we all do it,
Yep.
All part of the fun. And man, I tell you what, this show is going to be, Peter's joining us. Good.
Excellent.
Sweet. All the way from.
Wow. Peter, my glasses are really bad or you're extremely out of focus.
He's a little blurry there, but
no, I am definitely out of focus. So
okay, so we'll put on your glasses.
How's that?
Witness protection.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's like one of those crime shows. No, I was so excited about tonight's show that I thought about getting dressed up. In fact, I almost wore my new tie.
Nice. Raise it up a little. We may be blocking you. There you go.
So this is nice. I want to give a little shout out to Rob Schuster because he shared the link in Facebook. But it's called what is it called? The Vectric. This is one of their free programs. It's called In the Labs with Becky, Beki. And she shows you how to make these little bow ties. So I thought it was kind of cool. I made a couple of them today. And in fact, that's how I broke my bit. I was trying to surface the material before I started. And yeah, those decimal points will get you. But anyway, if you want to try one of these, I have in the show notes the link to that project. And if anybody wants to know, these really don't take long to make. In fact, The roughing pass for this took 27 seconds, and this is my tooling. The finish pass took 15 minutes and 32 seconds, and then the profile pass took like 3 minutes and 8 seconds. So about 20 minutes, and you can knock one of these out. So that link is down below if anybody wants to do that. I don't know if Rob Schuster's over there in the chat. He may have already made one.
Yep. He's in there.
Okay, good. Let's see. What else do I have here? I've already showed Javi my new toy, but I got this in the mail today. I thought I would show this. I know we're not talking about routers and spindles tonight, but I thought I would show this anyway. This is a router mount for my DeWalt 611. You know, some of you may know I've been using the one I made out of HDPE, and I thought I would kind of step it up a little and get something a little nicer. And the reason I wanted to show this is any of you new guys that are looking to get a really nice aluminum mount or a spindle mount, I have a link down below. CNC Router Parts has pretty much every kind of router or spindle you can think of. And like I said, these are nice billet aluminum mounts. They all have the 2.5 by 1 inch hole spacing, so they will fit, bolt right onto a Gatton or a Garage Works, or probably most everything else. That bolt pattern's been around forever because that's why I've used it. But these are really nice. This particular one cost me, I think it was $67.40. That's shipping and everything, getting it here. So just thought I'd plug those guys a little bit. They make awesome stuff.
Barbara was saying about the bow tie, paint it and becomes a great Christmas tree ornament.
Yeah, I suppose they would. They would. Only
great idea.
Painting walnut though, that's like
well,
that's like
make one out of
sacrilegious.
MDF.
yeah, you can't do that. I'd have to use some plywood or pine or something. Okay, let's see here. Couple other folks. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's do a quick. Javi, you want to do the honors? You got the good radio voice. You want to do the quick shout out?
Absolutely. Let's see who we got out there. Give me a second. And we've got the following people out here: Barbara Denman, Dave Mack, David Roby, Jim Bashirs, Eric Smith, Frankie from Frankie CNC, Grant Clark, Jeff Connor, Jerry Brown, Lyle Foyt, of course, Miter Mike, Patrick from Patrick Workshop, Rick Palakage, Ryan Ballard, Sean Martyr, and The Wood Bucket, and more. Thank you all for joining.
Absolutely. Thank you all. We've got, I don't know, looks like 60 some folks watching tonight so far. So appreciate y'all.
And Peter Posuelo is with us too.
And Peter Posuelo, all the way from New Zealand.
New Zealand, yes.
Where he's coming live from the future. So
that's it. It's already tomorrow afternoon here.
Yeah. Yeah, that's always enjoy having you, Peter. You're, like I said, you're welcome anytime. So okay, let's see. Let's check my notes. I want to do a few more shout outs. Again, we've got a really exciting topic, and I can't wait to get to it, but I want to get a couple of other shout outs out here. I saw Jerry Brown. Yeah, he's still over there in the chat. I want to congratulate Jerry Brown because he's now acquired a disco ball for his shop.
Yeah. So
I'm certainly looking forward to all his build videos. I know they're going to be a lot more interesting than they used to be. So congratulations on getting that disco ball. Can't wait to see it, Jerry. I anxiously await your next video.
By the way, also that not mentioned earlier, Josh T, Chris Neal, and John Revel, Landis Stutes, they just keep pouring in. Robert Smith, just wanted to give a quick shout out to the latecomers.
Okay. Well, we'll be here a little while anyway. Okay, I want to give another shout out to a young man I kind of stumbled across. Well, I guess I think I'm in one other CNC type Facebook group. You know, I'm obviously in the Gatton and the Garage Works, but of all the other ones, I usually end up leaving because there's too much stuff, trash talking and stuff going on. So I usually don't stay in those other groups, but I am in one other group. And I think this is where I saw a young man post a link to a video, and I checked it out. And the guy's name is Simon Anderson. Simon, I don't know if you're out there in the chat watching or not, but if you are, say hello or something. But his YouTube channel is Do It. And I've got links down in the show notes to his to this video. But it was a really good video of showing how he has, and I should have wrote the model number down, but he has one of the smaller shop bots, one where the table moves. You know, you got the X and the Z here, and then the table moves for the rest. So a real small shop bot, but he did a sign that was like 70, I want to say 78 inches by, I don't know, 24 or something like that, 22, 24, something. But the video he did was just a really good example of how you use tiling. So I wanted to give him a shout out. And by the way, you know, there's a link down below, so go over there and check out that video. And the guy just, you know, his channel's just getting going. He just passed 1,000 subscribers the other day, so you know, hit him up for a sub and a thumbs up and all that. And I'm sure he'd appreciate it. So really good video. You know, we were just talking about some tiling and stuff, you know, different ways to do things. And I guess that part might kind of go with what we're talking about tonight too. But he used the dowel method, and it worked flawless for him. Anyway, good video. So go check him out, Simon Anderson. Link down below in the description. And finally, before we get started, I want to give a shout out to Matt Haas of Awesome Wood Things. I got some links down below. He's been doing these. I mean, he's been doing the what is it called? The Adobe training, I guess.
Illustrator. Yep.
Yeah, Adobe Illustrator, 6 o'clock on Monday evenings. But he's recently started the
all things YouTube.
All things YouTube, and it's you know, if you got, you know, of course, if you're here, you got a YouTube channel. But he gives some great tips on how to grow your channel and different things you can do. And I have just thoroughly enjoyed watching Matt in that particular live stream. So check it out. I got links down below in the description for his YouTube channel, as well as the show that he's got coming up, which will be Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern. So check it out. All right. I've probably got you all at the edge of your seat now, wanting to talk about this hold down stuff. Anybody in the panel want to start about that? What's your favorite hold down method? Let's start with Peter. What do you guys down under? What do you guys down under use to hold down your material?
Oh, well, I've got a whole raft of different things I use. I've dragged some inside here. I was going to try and set up in the workshop, but it didn't work out for me. So these here, I don't know how well you see these, little plastic blocks. There's nothing spectacular about them.
Mm-hmm.
Originally, I believe they were called a CNC block or something like that. And it's used to pinch block. The CNC pinch block is what it was, and it's used to just hold down onto your material like that. Clamps through the table onto your T-slot and pinches your material down to the tabletop. And I use these a lot. And you can also reverse the bolt going through it there, so that you now have the small bit. So if you're doing thinner material, you can hold thinner material down onto a table. I did do a video on making these, and also on how I use them, the various methods that these can be used. So this is my #1 method for holding things down on the table.
Yeah, that's I have some right here. Of course, mine are not plastic like yours. Mine is well, this one happens to be actually, you can see it's kind of messed up. It's a piece of scrap maple. Sometimes I make them out of plywood. If you know, I tell folks that I have 2 programs that I keep in the computer. One is to run one this way and run one this way. And anytime I have a piece of material, you know, if it's hardwood or plywood, something that would make a good clamp like this, you know, before you take it off the table while you still got it clamped down, if you've got a little area, move it over there and run some of these, because these things are great because you can hit them, you know, it's wood, it's not going to hurt anything. And, you know, they just work really well. And this is probably my favorite method as well. I use, or I'm currently using, I've got some button head with Allen screws, and it makes it for a very low profile. So when your dust shoe or something, you know, because my dust shoe sticks out the front. So if this is clamping the front of the material and that comes over, it doesn't snag or catch on anything.
I just put a link on the chat for CNC Nuts' Pinch Clamps episode number 90.
Okay. Yeah. And I'll go back and add some of this stuff to the show notes too, Peter.
Yeah, episode 91 covers the various uses of them as well. The one that immediately follows that one. So that's just one of the methods I use. I've got some other stuff I dragged in here. This piece here, just a piece of wood.
Raise it up a little.
Here, let me stick it on him here just for a sec.
There you go.
Ah, okay. Yep. So you can see basically this is actually a piece of picture frame molding that I've trimmed down. So basically I've just left a rebate on the piece of wood here, quite narrow, and I use this for holding down pieces of wood, particularly thin pieces for this one here, but also if I've got a piece of material on the table I want to hold down, there's 2 holes in it. They go into my T-slots, and it basically grabs the entire edge of the piece of material rather than just getting a couple of points. So you can hold a thin piece of material flatter on the table, or basically just give you a lot more holding. You're holding it over a lot larger area. So that's just a nice simple hold down clamp that I use as well. Then I have this one here. It's a bit long for my camera. There you go. Okay. You hold it back far enough. So basically, this is nothing more than a piece of steel.
To hold to press it down.
Go right across the table.
And that goes in T-track?
In the T-tracks either side of my table. And the idea there is that if I've got a large piece...
That's one I hadn't considered before.
If you've got a large piece of material that's covering up all your T-slots, it may even go beyond the front and the back of your tabletop, then that will allow me to hold it down just across the whole width. Plus, sometimes I put a large piece of material on, but I'm only machining the very front of that material. So I hold it down at the front and then move that clamp, I call it a bar clamp, forward, maybe to within a foot or 2 of the front of the material. And
that's excellent.
Yeah, that way I can basically clamp the section of wood at the front of the table that I'm using, and I don't need to worry about what's sitting down the back. So that's another one. Another one I brought in is this one. It's a bit more complex. It's a Kam clamp.
There you go. And
if I push it there, you can see that this here bows out when you move the cam. So this is good for production work. Again, it bolts into my T-slots. It's got the bolts there. dust everywhere. Yeah, bolts into the T-slots, and I can just set up blocks of wood either side around where I want it to be, and you can slide your material in, clamp it, if you're say engraving it, something along those lines, or even if you're trying to flatten a large piece of wood and you can't put clamps on the top of it because they'll just get when you're surfacing it. If you can pinch it from the side with something like this here. But I have used this here. I did over 200 name tags for a wedding one for one project, and they were all individuals. They were all different, and yeah, I used this here, and I set up a corresponding piece to hold it at the other end. Just clamp it, take it out. There are videos of these here on my website, how to build them and how I've used them.
Yep.
Yeah. Just a matter of searching through, that's all.
Now you have a vacuum table that you did on one of your videos?
I do. I brought this in as well. And this is the vacuum table. Again, you probably can't see the whole thing in one hit. Vacuum hose goes on here, a whole heap of holes.
Is there enough volume to hold to have a pretty good suction on that thing?
Yeah. I did a project a wee while ago where I can't remember what it was. I surfaced something. No, I cut some pieces out. That's right, and I used the table, and it held down really well. I really built it for flattening material because it's frustrating trying to hold it.
Right.
So I built it more for the larger pieces. So the larger the piece, the better your vacuum's going to hold.
Of course.
Because you got over a larger area, and you're looking at 14 pounds per square inch.
One thing that I've seen from other vacuum tables is they have these little ridges where you put like some type of a rubber spline.
Yeah.
Is that I mean, do you find that you need anything like that, or?
No, well, on this one here, this is slightly different. This is in behind, and again, there's videos on building it. It's open in behind, so the air sucks through, but there's a whole heap of holes in it. So each hole here, I think from memory, is about 15 millimeters in diameter, 15 or 16 mils in diameter, and they're quite deep. But right in the center of it is a 1 millimeter hole. So what you see a lot of people do is they use something like a pegboard. They stick the vacuum in and pull the air through the holes. Right. And as soon as you start cutting into it or you uncover them, the vacuum disappears because now you've got a whole heap of, say, 1/4 inch holes that are uncovered, and your vacuum just can't keep up with that. So a viewer of mine who visited me one Christmas a couple of years ago told me about his vacuum table and told me the secret was to drill small holes in the center of these ones, so that if you uncover them, you're only uncovering a small amount. So I can uncover more than half of this and it'll still hold. That's
ingenious. That makes perfect sense, because while it takes time to create a vacuum, if you lose it, you won't lose it from the rest of the bed.
That's right.
That's incredible.
Now, in addition to that, he told me there's a material you can put down on the table.
Why haven't I seen this video of yours? I've seen all your videos.
I don't know.
There's something wrong with me.
Clearly, you haven't.
Where you been, Javi? I've seen it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yep. So there's also a material that he told me about you can lay down on the tabletop, which then provides a better seal between the tabletop and the material, and
like a porous rubber type material or something like that.
It's more of a it's certainly porous because it pulls a vacuum through it. But I had to play around with it, and I found that by simply laying a sheet of newspaper over the table, over the top of the grid pattern there, I get better vacuum down onto the table, because now it can still pull through the top of that newspaper because it's very thin, but it can't easily pull it in from the sides, because when you're looking at the side profile of the newspaper, it's very thick. You know, it might only be that, you know,
Yeah.
very, very thin, but when you're pulling from the side, you know, it's about this thick. So that works really, really well, and it provides much better holding. Plus, it covers up the holes. It provides a bit more resistance to pulling air through any uncovered holes. So, yeah, it works really well. I did do a video, it wasn't that long ago, on building this, and then a bit later I did one on, I showed it being used for a project. Yeah, so that's the vacuum table there.
Okay. What, well, you're in New Zealand, so I guess asking what it would cost to build that may not be the same as over here, but I mean,
well, building that's real cheap. That's just two pieces of MDF, so you're talking about $20, something like that. But there are a couple of things to be aware of. One, MDF is incredibly porous, and as I show on the video, it's done over 2 parts, the build, and after having basically cut it out and put it together for testing, I discovered it was leaking air, something terrible, and strangely enough, it just got worse as I did more testing. The vacuum was disappearing, and I found that the MDF was just leaking something terrible. It is such a porous material. Now, I know a lot of people use, sorry, I'm losing my train of thought here. Just use flat sheets. They just use flat sheets of MDF to as the table. There's no holes, no dimples in it, or anything of that nature. And I'd always assume that compressed layer, top and bottom, was basically a good seal to a vacuum, and I'd always assume that they'd vacuum that off to get at the more looser packed stuff in between, but that's just not the case. Even that hard packed surface, top and bottom, is just wickedly porous. And you'll see in the video, I run around with a flame, and you can see flame being pulled under the vacuum table. You know,
I put your video link up to the vacuum table as well.
Oh, you found that? Sweet.
Yeah.
I just couldn't believe it. Do you use
like a shop vac, or do you use like a vacuum pump, or?
Okay, so this is designed to be used with a vacuum pump, a vacuum cleaner, but not your standard shop vac, because what will happen is they cool by pulling air, by the vacuum air flow actually being pulled through the motor, and they just filter out the dust. But what I've been using on this here is an actual Festool vacuum cleaner, which has a separate cooling path for the motor as opposed to the vacuum. So it's important to get the right type of vacuum cleaner, I suppose you'd call it, for the job. So I think some of the wet and dry vacs, they obviously don't pull water through the vacuum motor, so they must have a separate cooling path as well. So it's just something to, if you're looking to set up a table like a vacuum table, you want something that has separate cooling for the motor from the vacuum.
I considered adding a vacuum table to either of my CNCs, but I prefer your method much better, having something portable that you can clamp on, because having a permanent vacuum table, it just it doesn't serve for all needs, as we're going to be discussing in this episode. There's just
would
so
it
many
fill
different...
up with dust?
Well, it's not just that. It's that if you do a lot of small parts, a vacuum table's useless.
Yeah, well, you can section off bits and pieces of a table, but yeah, you're right. The smaller the part gets, the less less holding you're going to get. That's for sure. And again, I designed this here not to be used every day. I've very, very rarely used it at all, just for specialty jobs, holding down large, thin sheets.
Yep.
Which are just, they always bow up in the center, as you guys would know. And you need other methods, you know, either vacuum table or other methods that I'm sure we'll discuss later, to hold those sorts of things down. Or for surfacing the top of something where if you put the clamps on the top, you're just going to mow the clamps down. So that's basically all I got it for, really.
Excellent.
Okay. Thanks for showing us that. I didn't expect you to drag in the vacuum table, but I'm glad you did, because that's we've learned a lot about that. I've already seen the video, but you know, for those who haven't, Javi,
I saw the video. I just didn't pay attention to the details.
I had the little bell checked on Peter's thing, and I watch it like right when it comes out because it's usually early in the morning, or at least early in the morning here. So yeah, I usually jump on Peter's video.
It's usually early in the morning here too.
But, all right, so we've covered a few things. I'm just going to show some of the other stuff I drug in here. Just again, this is the same basic clamp, but this one is made, and I'm showing this for you new guys that may be on a tight budget. If you're using your T-track, this obviously you can see this is just a knob with a T-nut that I made using my CNC. These work really well. Again, the only issue with these, like with any kind of a thing with a knob, you have to be careful that, because depending on what size bolt you got in here, it may be sticking up, and if you don't hit it with the router bit, you may hit it with your dust shoe or something, may snag on it or whatever, and you can guess how I know that. But so this is a really cheap, economical way to get started, and they work great. Some other
one thing is, sorry, Dave. One thing is, if you do make those, don't make them out of MDF, because MDF will delaminate when you pull a tension on it.
Yeah. This and sometimes I have to be careful too, because as you see, sometimes I start getting this part a little thin, and if I crank down too much, it'll start to split that as well.
Yeah, the best thing about those, I mean, like Peter was saying, no MDF and no plywood either for those, because they tend to again delaminate even the plywood.
Well, yeah, I mean, I make a lot of mine out of scrap plywood just because I have a lot of plywood, as you might guess. But I really prefer to make them out of scrap hardwood. Like this is some maple.
Yep.
And you can see I've left it a little beefier here. But these things will last forever, or until you cut them up, one of the two. A couple other things real quick. This is actually my buddy Jim gave me a couple of these, and I've never really used them, but these are made to go in T-track. They're adjustable, so you can push them up, and then you put the pressure on them like that, and it'll hold something down.
I've been dying to get some of those, but I'm not being a rich man like you. I've been holding off.
I tell you, I think one reason why I'm not a really big fan of these is because if you put your workpiece up and slide it against something on the back, say, and you mount these on the front, depending on what thickness your material is,
right,
it's just pushing sideways. So sometimes you got to be careful because it'll try to raise up.
Yeah, Mark was commenting that earlier in the. I'll address that when I get to the Kam Clamps as well. That's it is a problem.
Yeah, and real quick here, just a couple more. These are, everybody knows these. These are Rockler. I've had 8 of these. I've had them probably, I don't know, 10 or 12 years. You see, they've all got a little character built into them where I've cut it a little close. And Peter's laughing. Every one of mine look like this, or some form of that. They all have aluminum showing. But they're good. Again, when you get them from Rockler, they're made to go. They have that big black plastic or phenolic knob, and I'm not a fan of those. I like to use something. And again, you're probably thinking, well, what do I screw this into? And that's another thing. Another way to make a hold down table on a budget is just to drill a bunch of holes and use these little
in like 200s.
And you want to make sure when you get these, and I tell people this all the time, when you go to McMaster-Carr or your hardware store or wherever, there's usually 2 different kinds. This kind, as you can, I don't know, I guess you can see it if I can hold it up there. Can you see those little barbs right on the barrel? Those work great because you drill the hole. I think for this is a 1/4 20, and I think you drill a 5/16 hole. and you actually have to hammer these in, and those little barbs on the barrel will hold that in. I mean, you can get them out by taking a bolt and screwing it in there and then tapping it and knocking them back out, but you're always pulling up on them, so they're not going to fall out. Now, the other kind that some people get, and they go, well, Dave, I bought those things and they're falling out. They're no good. What they're doing is they're buying the ones that have the little tabs
Spikes around.
Around the flange.
The little spikes, yeah.
Yeah, those aren't worth the crap. Those will fall out. I'm telling you, those aren't any good. But you drill a good, drill the right size hole and knock these in. They're in there until you knock them back out the other way. And that's what I do. These go in from the underside of the table, and that's what I screw these on. I was talking to Javi before the show, and I've got a bunch of new T-track coming from Orange Aluminum, and I'm going to redo my Gatton table. Some of these, because I cut, I mean, basically what that machine cuts is Gatton CNC kits. So it's the same blank pretty much all day long, every day. And I've actually wore out some of these things. I don't know where they get cross-threaded or they get junk down in them or whatever, but I've had some get messed up, and I'm always using the same holes because it's the same size blank. So I'm going to redo my table and put the T-track and MDF strips like I did the GarageWorks that's out of my shop, and I'll try that. I'll have to come up with some other low profile type ways, because I don't like my dust shoe running over something sticking up. One last thing, and then we'll get to Javi. He's got it set up to show his Kam Clamps and some other things. This is something that you may not think of, and this is a real small one. You can get these in all different sizes, but these things are real handy if you've got a fixture, and we haven't even really got started talking about fixtures yet. But if you got a fixture and you want to just be able to plop something down, say you're making a batch of, I don't know, say you got, stockings. You've got a little shape of a stocking, so you have a fixture, a little pocket of that same stocking, and you pop them down in there. And if you need to make sure it holds down flat, depending on the thickness, they might bow up or something. These things are real handy because you can adjust the tension. You can, hit the lever, pull them back, put your material in there. They're just real quick. So if you're doing something like that, and again, you can get these things in all kinds of different sizes. They get to be a little pricey if you're getting very many of those. I think that's about all the clamps I've drug in here. I think we'll get to Javi. Javi, you ready to show us your?
Sure. I got a few samples. There's always let's see. I guess we'll start with the Kam Clamps, because although there's plenty of different hold down methods that I use for everything, probably the one I use the most is the Kam Clamps. I based this design on Marius Hornberger's design because it's very easy, it's very cheap to build, and what was really bothering me about the other hold down methods is everything is sticking. I mean, I know you got to pay attention to where your bit is going, but I like to keep my bit close to the for time's sake, close to the plywood. And most of what I do is 3/4 inch ply or 3/4 inch of whatever other type of wood. And I've hit more than my fair share of plastic, and with these things, I mean, we're talking a simple copper. This is a 1/2 inch copper tube that you get at any plumbing supply store with a hole and another hole, and you're done. And I have, let's see. Yeah, I don't know if you guys can spot this, but I even made a mistake on this thing and just rammed it, and the bit went right through. The copper's nice and soft, so I never had an issue. What I do on mine is I have, when I need to put a full board, I put a full board and don't use this system. But most of the time I have this angle, and I cut it to exactly you know, I zero out the machine and I put it on 2-2, and well, as you see, I've taken quite a few chunks. It's time to make a new one of these, but I basically put my piece up against this. This is always going to be 0-0, and I've always got it calibrated, so all I got to do is go to 2-2 and reset my 0-0. I'm done, so I've never had an issue with calibration. And then it's just a simple matter of putting the cam clamp in and there. I mean, that thing's not moving anywhere, which is very handy. Now, Mark did say, and I agree with him, when you're working with something like a half-inch material, not half-inch. Half-inch still doesn't bow, but when you're working with quarter-inch material, well, then you don't want to use anything like cam clamps because it will bow. For something like that, I mean, and Mark is extremely famous for this, and I've used it myself. It's the Luthier, that's it, a Luthier method of hold down. Where
I thought you guys said that was the Lindsay. I thought you said that was the Lindsay method.
That's the Lindsay.
It's known around the CNC world.
No. Even he says it's not, but we all know it as the Lindsay method. But anyway, you take a piece of tape. For those of you who haven't seen Mark's video, go and watch it. He explains it in detail.
And by the way, there's a link to that video down below in the show description.
Yep, I'll give you a short thing. You place your tape here. You place your tape on whatever piece you're engraving. You hit this with CA glue. You hit this with applicator. You stick it on, it's stuck. And obviously, the bigger the piece, you put a few strips. When you finish, the tape will stick to the tape, but obviously because of the sheer volume, the area, it's basically being held on with. Now, obviously, I wouldn't be using blue tape. I'd use the more powerful masking tape. You know. Then the other method. Well, I guess that about covers it for the CA glue, which is
probably worth noting as well that they use it for holding aluminium down for milling as well. I've seen that done with a New York CNC.
That's
uses
incredible.
that method as well.
I mean, it is an incredible method. And I'll tell you, it works best. That method in particular, when I built my for the Gatton CNC, I actually cut my own chain link, my drag chain, and I cut it out of quarter inch or 1/8 inch. I don't even remember, quarter-inch material. But let me tell you, I didn't have a single problem. Maybe 2 or 3 pieces out of, we're talking 14 feet of drag chain times 4 pieces. It was incredible. It held down, and I didn't have to use any type of recesses of what's that, tabs. So I mean, it was a great method. And of course, you've got your double-sided tape, which is also another fine method. You know, you put your double-sided tape on the piece, and that. But be careful, obviously, if you have something like this where it's lightly painted plaque material, for instance, you'll rip the paint right off of it with the double-sided tape. Whereas with the Lindsay method, it won't be that bad. Although for something like this, obviously, I'd use a cam clamp. And let me share one more. Oh, and by the way, for the cam clamp, just a few people may be asking you, oh, well, do you have a problem with the holes not being lined up or the travel? I get a good, I mean, we're talking probably almost 3/4 of an inch of travel on this cam clamp. And so what I did was I made myself, again, they're worn out here, but I made myself these simple little incremental sticks every 1/4 1/4 inch or 1/8 inch or so, and some bigger ones. So whenever I have a piece that, say, let me grab, well, I'll grab this piece. Whenever I have a piece that doesn't quite fit and I have to stick something in between, I'll always have the right, an extra measurement and stuff.
Yeah, I was going to say, Javi, for the people who may be thinking about building them a table this method, and they go, well, I don't want to put my holes that close together. If you hit a spot where, like you said, the clamp won't quite reach, I mean, all you got to do is cut a simple wedge out of some scrap material.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what I did here.
Even if you're not using the Kam clamps, you can take 2 wedges and put them in there. And
yep. Now, one thing I will say about this method, just like if you use your spoil board as a spoil board, if you use this method enough, like right here, I could tell you right here with this one, here, I'll show you with this one. Notice the play. Now, that's not this one doesn't have that much. Obviously, no, this one doesn't have any play whatsoever. I mean, but the ones that I've used the most often, that MDF on the top corner, it'll tend to, and I'm a brute. I mean, I just force it as much as I can. I like to run my CNC hard sometimes, and I don't want that thing flying off any of those pieces. So I tend to really put a lot of pressure on the table. So,
hey, Javi, if you have a piece in there with those cams, and it's a long running piece, like cutting wise, you don't see any type of vibration.
I'm glad you asked, because here's what happens. Let's say, okay, for instance, let's say I have a piece and I have the Kam clamp. Now I have it held down. It's not moving, but as you see with the vibration, it may work itself loose. Well, here's what I've learned to do. I take another Kam clamp at another point, wherever it may be. Here's a good one. And I actually, well, let me get a good location for this one. Here we go. Now this one is not going to move at all. It actually, if you will, it multiplies the capacity. I mean, this thing. I mean, obviously, it's I'm yanking like crazy. When this thing's up against this table, forget it. It's not moving. But what I'm getting at is sometimes I actually take and I put a Kam clamp here to close one Kam clamp, and then I go ahead and put another one just for you know what's and grins. I mean, it's I mean, I'm glad you asked that, because that's one thing that I came across, is that if it's not in this position and it's somewhere over here, then it's very easy for it to be pulled away. Whereas if it's over here, if I push laterally, that's not going to go up. If it's over here, if I push laterally, it works its way loose. So again, I block it from, and even sticking something like this, I got a nut in there. Even sticking something like this, where it can't, even if it moves a little, it's locked at this point. It's not moving anywhere. So now there's a fixed grip on it. So I've done things like that.
Okay. I wanted to mention real quick, MacTech 007 says luthier, musical instrument maker, method of using CA glue and masking tape. Mark Lindsay, I know you're out there in the chat. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was Crimson Guitars is where you saw that originally. But like I said, it's long since become known as the Mark Lindsay method.
Yeah, just as it's a running joke.
Just own it. But yeah, I think that's I know I've seen that guy do it, because I used to watch him a lot. I don't watch him so much anymore, but okay, MacTech, correct. Yeah, Crimson Guitars.
Yeah. And so last but not least, and this will probably be my favorite method, but I unfortunately don't have. I found out that the tool I have does not function with this, so I will have to get the proper tool. But here's one for all you guys that don't mind spending a little bit of money. These are plastic brad nails. These are composite plastic. They have double the shear strength of steel and half, double the tensile strength and half the shear strength. So basically what you would do is and they're not, they're nice and relatively, wood colored. So they're you take your piece, whatever it may be, if you know exactly where it's not going to be cutting, bam, 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 shoot it in with a brad nailer. Nice sound effects there, and ka-chunk, ka-chunk, and it's a simple matter of running your CNC. When you're finished with the CNC, you take your take a mallet, take a rubber hammer and give it a tap, and that thing will break right off, and you'll have your piece ready to go. I mean, it's
what type of nail gun you have to use?
Okay, there are two makers currently that make this. One is Senko. Senko makes a 15 gauge and an 18 gauge nail gun. I have rumored that Porter Cable's guns will work with these nails. The nails are about $40 to $50 for 2,000. This is the 1.5 inch. I don't trust this with anything less than 1.5 inch or 1.25. And being as the 18 inch, which would be nice, the 18 inch finish nails come in maximum 1 inch. I didn't want to take a chance on spending all that money and then having it only go 1/4 inch into the board and not being enough. So I bought these. I'm going to have to now break down and buy the gun. The gun's about $200 currently, again, at the time of this filming. Raptor is the other manufacturer that makes these. And they sell the nails for about the same price that fit into their machines. And their machines are anywhere, I think, between $300 and $500, something like that. Again, they have 15 gauge and they have 18 gauge composite plastic nails. These things are really light, really nice. I'm going to be doing a review as soon as I get the gun and start using them, because I've seen a few out there and it's fantastic.
Javi, I think somebody missed they're asking how do you get them out of the workpiece? Go over that again.
Okay. The way to get them out of the workpiece is fairly simple. Let me let's say this was my piece and it wasn't black. Well, let's say I'm cutting a circle out of this. I'll just go bam, 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 bam. I stick it in there. I zero out the bit. It cuts out a circle. Wonderful. I'm done. All I got to do is take a rubber mallet and hit it, because these have although they have a double the tensile strength. In other words, pulling the vertical strength, if you will, of steel, the horizontal strength, the shear strength is half, if not less. So you could actually, it's more than enough to hold the piece down. But all you got to do is tap it and they will snap. I mean, here, let me, these, holy cow. There we go. You see, I just snapped 3 of them. And it wasn't easy, but I did it with my hands. So you can clearly see that if you shoot them down, they're not gonna go away with. Imagine your hand forcing them, the pressure of your hand holding it down. That's more than enough for light passes for the CNC. Again, I'm going to be doing a review on this. I'm going to take it to the max and see if any of my CNCing will. I'm going to try to do some heavy-duty CNCing, seeing if it breaks it loose. And I'm going to see how easy it is to hit it with the mallet. I've seen 5 or 6 videos already of others that have done this and have used this, and they swear by this, but it's one of those things that it's just so new and it's a little bit steep on the price that not many people, you know, and then we're in a niche community of CNC, so there's that.
Awesome. And last but not least, we're getting up to the top of the hour here. For those of you who are really on a super tight budget.
Oh yeah, and just in case, if you didn't know how the Kam Clamp works, I'm sorry, Dave. You put it in your track, you put it in your thing, you clamp it down, and that's not moving. Well, obviously, it's not moving when you have 2 of them, and you run the and then you run your router right through this and cut it like Dave and I do.
Yeah. Also, you know, I mentioned, you know, I've had some of these. I've got some links to some that are similar. Rocklers, you know, sometimes they're a little proud of their stuff, and they get a little pricey. But I've got some Amazon links down below for some that are just like it. Only, I think one of them was they don't have the rubber stuff on them or whatever, but they're a lot less expensive than the Rockler brand. Although Rockler brand is good, you know. But probably if you're on a really super tight budget and you want probably the cheapest way to hold something down you can think of, that would be this right here.
Oh yeah.
Just good old deck screw.
Yep, that's the best.
Or wood screw or any kind of screw, really. You know, if you're cutting something that's in a skeleton or whatever, you can hit the outer edges. You just got to be careful where you put them, because you will forget, you know, if you just start throwing them in random places. I try to bring my my thing up in VCar Pro or whatever, and you've got that little measurement thing across the top, and you can kind of get an idea where's a good safe place to put these. But yeah, if it's something that's all inside, you can put these out on the corners.
One thing I would suggest is they do sell aluminum. You know, I mean, they're not that much more really. They do sell aluminum drywall screws, and or wood screws, you can call them, and that'll also possibly save you a bit. But the other thing I wanted to mention is I actually seldom, but every now and then, I'm just lazy and I don't have any of my clamps handy at arm's length, but I have a handful of screws. So some time ago, I was holding down a piece, a plywood piece, in the areas that all it takes is 4 screws on the corners. And I put a 2-inch screw in, and it wouldn't go through. And I wondered why it wouldn't go through. Well, I've got about 1 inch or so of material, but then I've got a cast iron steel bed underneath it. Now, luckily, I hit the support for my CNC. But if you manage to hit a belt, if you happen to have a CNC designed with a belt or a track in the wrong place, in fact, if you go right through a track and then it just blocks the CNC, I mean, just be very careful. Always know where your screw is going and how far, if you do use the simple method.
Yeah. One other comment I wanted to make, you know, you mentioned double-sided tape. I've had pretty good success with the carpet double-sided tape, because I mean, that stuff will really hold it down.
Oh yeah.
The biggest issue I've had with that is, because I'm a clamp guy, whenever I use that stuff, I always feel like I probably overdo it. And then it's like either hard as heck to get up, or I end up breaking what I just got trying to get it pried up. So that's why I'm not a fan of the double-sided tape. It works. A lot of folks use it.
The same with me. Double-sided tape. I mean, I'd prefer the CA glue method as opposed to double-sided tape, because it is, when you're starting to cut a lot of little pieces and you're cutting through that tape, all of a sudden now you're using your fingernails to try to peel off every single one of those pieces of double-sided tape.
Yeah.
And it's not fun anymore.
Yeah, it's like I said, it works and a lot of folks use it, but I don't.
Yeah.
I really don't. I have, but I don't use it. All right, I think. Go ahead, Peter.
I've been guilty of using the screws as well, because some material, while you can hold it down, you can't stop it from sliding. Plasticky materials.
Yep.
Right sods with that sort of thing. So
Yeah,
I've been guilty of that, or nails.
I tell you, a lot of times when I use screws, I don't start out using screws. I'm using clamps. And then as the machine's running, I suddenly realize that I forgot to put tabs on something. And I know when it cuts out something interior, it's going to pop it out. So then I'll stop and throw a screw in it real
I've
quick
done the same thing.
to hold it. And it saved many a project just by, screwing something down. Okay, well, we made clamps and hold down stuff really exciting, didn't we?
I told you you'd get at least an hour's worth out of it.
Yeah. We've got 80-something folks watching too.
By the way, Dave, I'm going to send you a link so you can get an Amazon link to the Senko nails also. So, guys, in a day or two, check back and you'll see
I'll put all the links. I'll go back through and get them out of the chat and put them in I guess it'll let me cut and paste them out of there and put them in the show notes.
Well, I'll send you where I got them so you can put an Amazon link to everyone.
Okay.
Because those nails are, I hope they're fantastic. We'll see.
Yeah.
David Robbie had a question.
We didn't cover I'm sorry, Peter. Go ahead.
Oh,
Peter.
no, sorry, Dave. David Robbie had a question just about the knobs for the hold downs. Dave, you had yours made out of wood. These are just made out of a bit of chopping board. And I just cut them out on the CNC. Hang on, where the camera is.
So chopping board, that would be like HDPE, I guess?
Yeah, basically. Yeah, it's about 1/2 inch thick. And I've just put the thread direct into the plastic as well, and it holds well.
Oh, I like that.
And something about the T-slots, when you're setting up the T-slots in your table, it's a good idea to make sure the tabletop overlaps the top of that T-slot. So that when you're pulling, you're not pulling against the screws holding the slot in place. Right. You're actually pulling against the tabletop. You're compressing the tabletop. There's no way you can pull those slots out. If you just cut a groove, stick your slot in, you're relying on the screws underneath. And
exactly, it's funny you say that. I mean, well, it's not funny. It's. I'm glad you said that, Peter. That's actually the first lesson that I learned in hold downs, because before I had these holes or anything else. And I'll caution anybody who's building a table with only T-slots. Do the following. Aside from cutting your slots, what I do with mine is I actually cut my slots in, I screw them down, and then since I know exactly where I cut those slots, I have the measurements on my CNC. I throw another piece of MDF and glue it onto the whole thing, cover up all those T-slots and the whole thing. Well, guess what? You know where they are. Run a 1/4 inch and only a 1/4 inch line across where all those T-slots are. You've just buried your T-slots, but now when you're, and that's what mine actually has. In fact, let me share I can actually show you here. And if I can, I don't know if, hang on a second.
You're making it.
Javi's in the hurricane.
Yeah, I'm telling you. Let's see. I guess, you could see that there.
Yep.
All right. Ignore the top piece of plywood that I have here, because that's just nothing else. But I basically cut the T-slots. I screwed them in. The first lesson I ever learned was as soon as I clamped down on these things, it just pulled them right up, because those little tiny screws, unless you're going into hardwood, it's not going to hold. And so I actually glued another piece. This has been shaved down since, but it used to be 3/4 of an inch. I put another piece of MDF on top. And like I said, I ran the exact slot that I cut, 3/4 inch or 5/8, whatever your T-slot is. I actually cut it a 1/4 inch along the top. And so again, ignore this piece, but I slide my these things in through here, and I slide them in from the other side. This one's blocked, and my camera fell.
You're braver than I am. I just glued mine either side. I cut the piece strip wide enough and glued it in between.
That works as well.
Yeah.
I mean, that's. I mean, it just. I happen to. I just have OCD about where all my where all the points are. I mean, that, like I said, this machine, that's one advantage, and I won't get into homing switches, but that's one advantage of homing switches is you're always going to be zeroed out or calibrated in the same exact starting position.
Okay, well, we're a little after the top of the hour. We managed to make it through this exciting topic. I hope you guys out there in the chat have got something out of this. This was somebody had asked me to do a show about different hold down methods. So here you go. I don't even remember who it was, but appreciate you guys watching. If you got anything out of this show, please hit the thumbs up on your way out. That'll help me out a lot. I appreciate it. Next week, I'm not even sure I'm going to be able to do a show. We've got the 2018 International
Maker Fair
Cigar Box Guitar Festival going on right here in my little town of McDonough. And I'm going to be going to that. It's a Friday, Saturday deal, so I don't know if I'm going to be home in time to do a show. If I am, you'll see something posted on Facebook. Like if I get home an hour before, like 7 o'clock or something, I'll post something on Facebook, and we'll get on here and just do a general Q&A or something like that. Otherwise, I'm going to be shooting a lot of video at that festival. So, and if you're in anywhere near the Atlanta area and don't have nothing to do next Friday and Saturday night, come out to McDonough and check out that festival. They got some awesome talent lined up to perform at that thing. So, and I'm a kind of a fan of cigar box guitars anyway. I built a few of them and still got a few to build, and they're a lot of fun. So.
Yep.
Anyhow, let's see if we got anything else. You guys on the panel got anything you want to add?
No, I'll be in Maker Fair next weekend, New York.
Okay.
I'll be out for the next 2 weekends.
Playing with bamboo?
Well, in 2 weeks. I got stuck. I got stuck. I volunteer. Whatever. My wife is dragging me to. Is taking me to a friend of ours' daughter's party, like a Sweet 16s. I think. Everything's a blur to me. All I know is she says we got a thing. I go.
All righty.
And yeah, in the following week I will be bringing home a truckload of bamboo from the property and seeing what wonderful CNC, what the CNC can do with bamboo.
My old buddy Patrick says he's over there in chat. He says, "Be sure to mention how awesome Patrick is."
Patrick who?
Here's your plug.
Yeah.
Go check out his channel. Subscribe, like, share, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So thank you guys, Mike and Peter and Javi. Thanks for joining me tonight. We can take something really boring like clamps and make a pretty decent show out of it.
I'm telling you.
Thank you guys.
And we haven't even talked about how we hold rods, because I just thought about it, because how in the world, I was thinking about the future, how in the world am I going to clamp down bamboo to work with? It's going to be interesting.
Yeah. And we didn't really cover fixtures that much.
Yeah, jigs is well, that's one of those things that people just have to make on their own for
because they're pretty
use they have.
specific for what you're trying to do. But okay, well, we're going to get out of here. Thanks everybody for watching. And like I said, just kind of keep your eye on Facebook. If you're not already following me on there, you should be if you want to know what's going on with this show, because I always post everything there. And if I'm back in time from the festival, we'll get on here and do a hangout and talk CNC stuff. And if not, I will see you the following week. But if y'all would do me a favor, leave me either in the chat, or if you come back after it's the thing is recording, come back and put a comment and let me know what else you want us to talk about. I don't have my list in front of me right now, but I think we're starting to whittle it away as far as the topics. But we'll come up with something else. Just let me know whatever you want to talk about. We'll talk about it. I mean, heck, clamps, accessories. We've covered all kinds of stuff. So, all right, everybody have a great weekend. If you're out over there on the East Coast, stay safe. Stay away from Hurricane Florence if you can, and we will see you all later. Good night, everybody.
Good night, all.
Night.
Night.